fucking kidding me? Everything set, Dalton?
Yeah, all good. Same plane, same pilot, same.
We're out of here in 30 minutes. Let's go.
Drop the gun! Drop it!
That man at the pump, the one who just put 3 men on the ground without raising his voice, moved here 6 months ago. He came to Louisiana looking for exactly one thing: quiet. He bought a farmhouse. He enrolled his daughter in the local school. He started working with wood. He introduced himself to his neighbors and apologized for nothing. His name is Phil Broker, and somewhere between that gas station and the quiet life he was building, someone made a phone call that is going to change everything. To understand why a man like Phil Broker moves to Louisiana with a 10-year-old girl and tells no one anything about his past, you have to go back 2 years. Phil was DEA, deep cover, embedded inside the Outcasts, a biker gang running methamphetamine through several states. Their leader, Danny T., trusted him completely, brought him into the operation's inner circle, shared plans with him that were never meant to leave that room. That trust was the point. That's how undercover work ends, with someone who believed in you paying the price for it. When the DEA launched the raid, the trap snapped shut exactly as planned. Almost. Danny's son, Jojo, was in the building. In the chaos, a gun dropped, a shot fired, and a young man who should never have been part of any of this was gone. Not a gang member, not a target, just a son who was in the wrong place because his father brought him there. Phil carried an injured agent out of the building. He watched Danny's grief calcify, right there in the parking lot, into something colder than anger, into blame. Phil resigned from the force 2 weeks later, drove south, chose a town small enough that no one would think to look for him, in the state where Maddie's mother had grown up, where they'd talked about moving someday when everything settled down, just not the way anyone planned. Maddie Broker is 10 years old. She rides horses before school, helps her father with woodwork in the evenings, and carries her mother's absence like something she's decided not to put down. At school, she mostly keeps to herself, which is why when a boy named Teddy Clume grabs her hat on the playground and mocks her, she doesn't wait for a teacher. She puts him on the ground. Phil gets the call and arrives to find Teddy already being treated, and Teddy's mother, Cassie Bodine, already at the edge of something loud and unreasonable. She wants someone to answer for her son's humiliation. Phil listens. He stays calm. He doesn't apologize for teaching his daughter to stand up for herself. That calm, that refusal to match her register, is what undoes Cassie, because she's a woman who only understands 2 languages, submission and escalation. And Phil isn't offering either. As they step outside, and this is where the first domino falls, Cassie decides that what happened in that principal's office needs to be settled differently. She sends her husband Jimmy out to do it. The sheriff separates them. No charges, self-defense. He asks Phil, almost gently, how he managed to put a grown man down that efficiently. Phil doesn't answer. Across the parking lot, Cassie watches her husband being helped off the asphalt. She is not thinking about Jimmy. She is not even thinking about Teddy. She is already dialing her brother. His name is Gator Bodine, and Cassie has just made the single worst decision of her life. Gator runs a boat mechanic business out by the water, a clean front, just enough legitimate work happening on the surface to make the questions stop before they start. He's not a man who loses his temper in public. He doesn't need to. The people in this town already know what he's capable of, and the sheriff, The same man who just told Phil there'd be no repercussions has been looking the other way for years. When Cassie calls asking him to lean on a stranger who made her husband look foolish, Gator could have dismissed it as exactly what it was, a family embarrassment that has nothing to do with him. Instead, he gets curious, because what kind of man knocks out two people at a gas station without hesitation, then does the same to a third in a school parking lot, and still manages to seem like he's barely paying attention? Gator decides he wants to know who Phil Broker really is. Meanwhile, Phil is doing something that has nothing to do with Gator or Cassie or the sheriff. He's planning a birthday party. On a Tuesday afternoon, while Phil and Maddie ride horses down to the water, Maddie tells him she misses her mother. Not dramatically, just quietly, the way children say the things they've been carrying for a while. Phil sits with her by the water. They don't need to fill the silence with anything. Back at the house, and this is happening at the same time while they're sitting there, Gator walks in. He moves through the rooms slowly, not looking for money or valuables. He's looking for something specific, and he finds it in the back room, tucked out of sight, a file, pages of it. Phil's entire history with the DEA, the outcasts, the undercover operation, the raid, JoJo's name. By the time Phil and Maddie come back inside, the house looks exactly as they left it. Except one file is missing, and the man who took it is already making plans. That night, Maddie can't find her cat, can't find her stuffed bunny, the one she's had since she was small. Phil takes a flashlight and goes out to look. He finds the bunny tied to a tree, cut open, strung up where he couldn't miss it. This is not a warning from someone like Jimmy, who throws a punch and falls down. This is a message from someone who knows that the fastest way to reach a man like Phil Broker is not through him. It's through his daughter. Phil stands in the dark for a long moment. For the first time since arriving in Louisiana, he allows himself to see the situation for exactly what it is. This town has a predator, and that predator now knows his name. Gator has been thorough. He's read everything in that file. He's found out about the outcasts, about Danny T, about JoJo, and he's reached a conclusion that is as cold as it is practical. Phil Broker is worth more as a delivery than as a problem solved. He reaches out to Cyrus, the new leader of the outcasts, the man running what's left of Danny T's operation while Danny sits in prison. The offer is straightforward. Hand over Phil Broker, the man responsible for destroying their gang, in exchange for exclusive rights to distribute within the county. It's the kind of deal that sounds clean on paper. But what does it mean when a man would rather sell a person than simply make him disappear? It means he's already thinking past the transaction, already calculating what comes after. Gator has never intended to let this stay small. He wanted something from this town, more territory, more reach, and Phil Broker just became the currency. On the other side of town, Phil has figured out enough to move first. But something those men said is following him home. Who's watching your kid? They said it to break him, to make him sloppy. And Phil knows, even as he drives, that it wasn't just a taunt. It was information. Someone told them where Maddie would be tonight. Cyrus and the outcasts arrive by water, quiet in the dark. Phil's friend Tito is in the stables when he hears them. He moves toward the sound the way a man does when he's not quite sure what he's walking toward. He finds out. The fight in the stables is brutal and brief. Tito holds his own longer than anyone would expect, long enough to fire a warning shot before one of them puts a bullet in his hand. Inside the house, Phil hears the gunshot. He calls for Maddie, moves her downstairs, tells her to find somewhere small and dark and not to come out until she hears his voice. Then he picks up his weapon and opens the front door. He moves through his own home the way he once moved through operations, not panicking, not hesitating, choosing each position like he's done this 1,000 times. Because he has. He drops 2 men in the hallway. He reaches the yard in time to stop a third from taking aim at Maddie as she runs for the trees. And then, in the 2 seconds he takes to make sure she's clear, a woman named Marie steps out of the darkness on the other side. Maddie is gone. Phil gives the sheriff everything. Names, connections, the deal with Cyrus, Gator's lab. The sheriff listens. This time, there's no looking away. Maddie calls from Marie's phone. She stays calm, almost unnervingly calm for a 10-year-old girl, in the back of a stranger's car, and describes what she can see through the window. Water. A smell like gasoline and chemicals. A wooden sign she can't fully read. Phil recognizes it immediately. On the other side of town, Gator arrives at his own shop to find Marie there, and Maddie with her. The anger that crosses his face has nothing to do with loyalty or principle. It has to do with exposure. A child in his lab is a witness, and Gator does not leave witnesses. He's preparing to act on that logic when Cassie and Jimmy arrive, asking about the shootings. Cassie hears a child's voice from somewhere in the back. She goes to find it. She reaches the lights. She turns them on. The trap Phil left hours ago does exactly what Phil built it to do. The lab goes up. Everything Gator built, the operation, the territory, the deal with the outcasts, reduced to smoke and rubble in a single moment by a trap set by the man he was planning to sell. Gator grabs Maddie and runs. Phil arrives in time to watch the taillights disappear down the highway. He follows. The chase is the kind of thing Phil Broker is built for and still not prepared for, because Maddie is in that car, and every decision he makes has to account for that. Gator makes it to the bridge, stops. Phil's car hits the barrier and flips. Gator steps out and walks toward the wreckage, certain of what comes next. He's miscalculated what? Phil has him. 2 years of running from a past that kept finding him. A file taken from his home. A doll strung up in his yard. His daughter taken from her own house. He has the man responsible right here. And then Maddie calls his name. Not for help, not in fear, just Dad.